been visiting this detention centre for twice a week for over 4 months now and helped to organise a visiting program for members of the public to come inside and meet these young asylum seekers and refugees. And although I will never truly know what it is like to have the same experiences, I've gained a pretty good understanding of the issues these young people have faced in their home countries, the treacherous journey by boat, and the issues they continue to face in their daily life inside this prison. These young refugees have fled war and persecution in their home countries and have then had to negotiate a long and dangerous journey to reach our shores to seek asylum. Despite what the government and commercial media would have you believe, this is not illegal. It is accepted under the 1951 UN Convention referring to the status of refugees, which Australia is a signatory to, that people will flee persecution any way they can. And this is sometimes means crossing borders of more than one country and without identity documents. It is also not a requirement of the Migration Act to lock up all irregular maritime arrivals. And in doing this to children and unaccompanied minors, the Australian government is also not fulfilling its obligations under the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Shame! It is clear that the Australian government has very little regard for international conventions. In January, Australia appeared before the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva to face a periodic review, where the Australian representatives told the barefaced lie that detention of children and unaccompanied minors is a policy of last resort. Yet there are over 1,000 children and unaccompanied minors locked up in detention centres around the country.
Liar, Gillard, liar!
But what do you expect from a country that doesn't even have a human rights bill? It's a disgrace!
Shame, Gillard, shame.
This so-called policy of last resort is destroying the mental health of these young people. And all asylum seekers and refugees, whether they're 7, 17 or 27, mandatory detention is unacceptable. This system is crushing already vulnerable people who have committed no crime. There is currently no set maximum amount of time an asylum seeker can spend in detention. Even criminals in prison have a parole or release date they can look forward to. The trauma of events back home and in flight from war and persecution, witnessing and experiencing all kinds of horrific events like rape, torture and the murder of their loved ones, thinking they were going to die in the sea, not knowing the whereabouts or the welfare of surviving family members and friends is more than any normal person can handle. Our government then takes these vulnerable people and re-traumatises them through the indefinite detention system.
Shame!
Shame! They are made to recount events beginning from their very early childhood through to the present by the Australian Federal Police, case managers and lawyers over and over again, being questioned in a way that assumes they are guilty or maybe fabricating their stories. Their wrists are even x-rayed as a way of verifying their age. They are not given one dedicated lawyer to handle their case, but several, depending on whoever is working that day that their case is given brief attention. So many I have spoken to do not know their rights. They are afraid, confused, and completely disempowered. There doesn't seem to be any order in the process. Some of the guys inside this centre have been in detention for more than 12 months. But they have watched the odd asylum seeker come from Christmas Island and be released from this centre within a month. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened. How do you explain that to someone who has been waiting here for more than 5 months and in detention for more than 1 year? The majority of young asylum seekers and refugees inside this centre suffer from depression, and at least 2/3 to 3/4 are on antidepressants. Some self-harm and have thoughts of suicide. Most of the guys are completely despondent, having lost all hope for their future. There are so many aspects of their lives in detention that torment them. I have heard many stories of cruel Serco staff taunting and teasing them. Recently, 3 young guys jumped the fence in a desperate act to report their treatment to the local police. They had no intention of hiding in the community. They misguidedly thought that the police would have to help them once they told them how they're being treated. A few days later, another young refugee spent the day in a tree in a very poor mental state. And he told me a Serco officer taunted him to jump.
Shame!
Shame! Many of the guys have told me that they no longer attend excursions because the way that they are treated by Serco staff outside the centre is humiliating and causes the local community to look at them in fear because they are under guard. To keep these young people locked up in this prison and treat them with such indignity and contempt is utterly cruel and devoid of compassion. Our government and the commercial media should be ashamed of the way they treat and portray asylum seekers and refugees. This is not a political issue. It is a humanitarian one. Asylum seekers and refugees are human beings, but our government and sections of the population treat them worse than animals. The government has promised to have most children out of detention by June. Only a very small number have been released to community detention and an equally insignificant number that have been granted full refugee status and released altogether. Due to lengthy periods in detention, some of the guys have turned or are about to turn 18. A couple have already been sent to Maribyrnong, a high security facility for adults. And there is real concern around this, as young refugees turning 18 allows the government to evade the responsibility to have them out of detention by June because they are no longer considered minors. We are watching and waiting for the government to fulfil their promise to release children and unaccompanied minors from detention by June this year. We must be ready to take them to task when they fail to keep their promise. We need you all to get involved in the refugee rights campaign. Sign the petition, tell as many people as you can about this centre and the issues that face asylum seekers and refugees. Come and visit the young guys inside this centre. Join the Refugee Action Collective and help us organise future actions, even if it's just putting up posters or handing out leaflets in your local area. Our meetings are fortnightly and we're having another action at Easter time, so visit our website for details. We can't just sit by and let this inhumane, unjust, damaging system continue. How many more asylum seekers must die in detention before the government does what's right? Thank you.